Where do you want me to begin? The beginning?
When you look at the scale of this movie and you know what the conditions were that they were making this movie under, it's truly, honestly, and all filmmakers say this, they all say, well, what we did was unprecedented. But honestly, what the crew of Songbird did and what Adam and Jacques did in capturing this movie on film is truly unprecedented.
There were literally maybe 4 or 5 different people on set with the actors, all of us wearing full PPE, the masks, the face shields.
My name's Adam Goodman. I'm the producer of Songbird. I've worked on a lot of different movies. It's hard to remember all of them. This is a Michael Bay disaster movie in the single greatest disaster moment of our entire lives.
Janet called me, and I knew Janet, the producer, because we did quite a few. I worked with some films that she had produced before, and she sent me this treatment from Adam, the director. I loved it, and she told me a little bit what we were trying to do, shooting this movie during the pandemic, and I said right off the bat, I want to be part of that.
You know, I was terrified of him because it's Jacques. I'm like, oh my God, this French guy's good. I hate this camera.
The role that the Komodo played in Songbird, I just can't express it enough.
There has never been a movie that was made under circumstances like this. There was civil unrest, there was a global pandemic, there were fires that were burning across the state of California.
We fully intended to make this film with, iPhones and laptops and Zoom calls and all of that kind of almost found footage aesthetic, which is not something that I'm a big fan of. I'm a massive cinephile.
So the Komodo, which is our newest camera, which we started creating about 5 or 6 years ago.
I love movies that look like movies.
Netflix actually came to us and they said they needed something better than a GoPro, because a GoPro, they were limited to 20 frames before they had to cut out of it.
The real genius masterstroke of this movie for me was bringing Jacques on board, who very quickly convinced me that no, we could shoot this like a traditional movie. And my first question, of course, was, well, how are we going to do that?
But I think that the innovation of the movie was born out of necessity.
And that's when I had a brilliant idea, and I said, oh, the RED KOMODO. And I said right away, this is the camera that we might be able to do something with.
I went and visited Michael Bay.
Hey, I'm relaxing. I'm one of the first directors to try this out. It's a new Komodo. Great little camera.
And we went for dinner and I showed him the camera right out of the oven. And he's like, okay, great, let's do a movie.
You gotta stay back!
That's Michael Bay shooting our motorcycle hero going down the street.
Boy, he's a weirdo, that new guy.
And I was fortunate to do this commercial with Michael Bay in Miami, the Hard Rock Cafe with Jennifer Lopez for the Super Bowl, and that was my first introduction to the Komodo.
So in the kind of the beginning, kind of height of the pandemic, Adam called me.
I called Michael.
I worked with Adam. He was the president of Paramount, where I did a lot of work. I
was sitting in this living room. It was pouring rain in the beginning of the pandemic in LA.
He said, how's it hanging, Mike? I said, good. I said, I'm sick of cooking and I'm a bad cook, so that's kind of how it's going.
I said, what are you doing? And he said, nothing. What are you doing? I said, no, what are you doing right now in life? And he said, nothing.
Adam goes to me, he goes,
and I said, well, you want to go make a movie right now?
And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I said, you want to go make a movie right now?
And he goes, no, let's make a movie right now about the experience we're all going through.
And I sent him the sizzle reel that Adam and Simon had put together. And Bay called me back, and Bay never calls back fast unless he wants to complain about something. And Bay called back really quickly, and he said, can we really make this? And I said, yeah, I think we can. And he said, how?
And Jacques sent me a picture of the Komodo, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. And he told me it was this kind of state-of-the-art camera, hadn't been released yet, and it was going to be the key to us being able to pull off this monumentous task of making a movie during a pandemic, during a lockdown.
Adam Mason kind of tricked me into making something that looked more like a traditional movie. The promise was that we were going to shoot something that was going to be more captured, and thank God he didn't listen to me.
That was the challenge, and I said, how can we make that happen? To bring the camera and the crew inside the location with the actors and not being and not contaminating the environment.
The testing that you guys do is worth 10 times of what we do in the lab.
Because of the camera's size, it meant that we could make a movie that looked, you know, like a blockbuster. It really does, but with this tiny, almost guerrilla-style crew.
You guys took them out, and they just kept going.
And from the get-go, as soon as I took it in my hands, I think this is amazing.
And it was funny because this was really a camera that was in prototype form.
It allowed us to completely strip down the amount of crew that we had on set, which was something that was absolutely paramount to us making the film. It meant that we basically just had Jacques and his camera assistant and the AD.
But once you pick this camera up and feel it, and then you see the image from the sensor, it's kind of a holy shit moment.
I think, I remember you look at progression of film cameras, from the big one, in the 50s, to slowly, particularly in the 60s and the 70s, with the beginning of Eclair and Atom. We have always tried to make the camera smaller and smaller and smaller.
I really think that this camera is going to essentially replace the whole DSLR thing.
We have a movie that looks like a big Michael Bay produced film.
There's something special about this camera.
And I think the Komodo goes in that line of progression of all those film cameras to digital cameras to now, in that world trying for filmmakers to have a small camera that can go anywhere. That is fantastic, that is amazing.
And I don't think any of that would have been possible without the Komodo camera.
As soon as I saw this camera in Jacques' hands, I was just, it was like the first time, when digital cameras came out, it felt, I felt that kind of excitement again.
This is the way of the future.
It's now the A camera for a lot of people, including myself. I mean, I've got all the cameras that we make, and plus some others that I have free choosing from, and I'll just pick up the Komodo. Like, that's the camera of choice for me.
It will allow for smaller movies to look bigger.
It's a camera for about $6,000 that shoots stuff that looks like a Hollywood blockbuster.
And I was amazed sometimes when I'm shooting and I see them going in one place and I say, oh my God, I don't think I have enough light. And then I'm just looking in the monitor and I say, oh wow, I don't have much to do.